John Stamos just said what Hollywood has been whispering for years, and he didn't hold back. In a rare moment of raw honesty, the Full House icon finally broke his silence about Lori Loughlin's painful split from her husband of nearly 3 decades, Mossimo Giannulli. And his words? They stunned everyone. After years of standing quietly by his longtime friend's side, Stamos is now speaking with a kind of fury and heartbreak that fans weren't ready for. He called out Giannulli directly, labeling him a terrible narcissist, and revealed that whatever happened between him and Lori busted her up to the core. But what could make one of Hollywood's most beloved nice guys publicly slam his friend's ex? What did Mossimo really do to push Stamos to the edge? Because if there's one thing John made clear, this wasn't just gossip, it was personal. It all started when John Stamos sat down for a casual chat on the Good Guys podcast, but what came out of his mouth was anything but casual. The 62-year-old actor, known for his charm and composure, suddenly dropped his guard and spoke straight from the heart. As the hosts brought up his Full House co-star Lori Loughlin, you could hear his tone shift softer, protective, and heavy with emotion. "I'm just heartbroken for her right now," he confessed, his voice breaking the polished Hollywood silence that usually surrounds messy divorces. Stamos didn't sugarcoat it. He painted a picture of a woman blindsided by heartbreak, saying Lori was devastated after her split from designer Mossimo Giannulli. For a girl who has lived her life really well, to be thrown into this separation, blowing up her family this way, I just hate to see her go through this. That line alone set off shockwaves online. Because in a world where stars usually dodge personal drama, Stamos didn't just acknowledge the pain, he owned it. His words sounded less like a co-star giving a polite comment and more like a loyal friend who's watched someone he cares about crumble behind the scenes. And that's when listeners realized this wasn't just an interview. This was a confession years in the making. For John and Lori, this bond runs far deeper than Hollywood headlines. Their story began long before social media, long before scandals back in the late 1980s, when Full House turned them into one of TV's most iconic couples, Uncle Jesse and Aunt Becky. What started as on-screen chemistry quickly transformed into a real-life friendship that never faded, even after the cameras stopped rolling. They grew up together in the industry, premieres, charity galas, family milestones, always showing up for one another. Lori often called John her brother for life, while John once described her as the heart of Full House. Fans adored how natural their connection was, and even years later, every reunion photo reminded the world that their bond wasn't an act. So when John talks about her now, it doesn't sound like gossip, it sounds like someone defending family. He's seen Lori at her best and her worst. Through career highs, motherhood, and public scandal, he's stayed in her corner. And that loyalty gives his words real weight. Because when someone who's known you for over 3 decades says you've been through hell, people listen. But what exactly did John mean when he said Lori put up with a lot during her marriage? That's where things start to get complicated. Lori Loughlin's marriage to Mossimo Giannulli was once seen as picture perfect. 2 successful stars, raising beautiful daughters, living the kind of life people only dream about. But behind the gates of their Beverly Hills home, things weren't as flawless as they looked. After 28 years together, their relationship quietly began to crack. And according to John Stamos, the damage ran far deeper than anyone knew. On the podcast, Stamos didn't mince words. "Whatever he did to her, it busted her up to the core," he said. That single sentence hit like a bomb. Fans could feel the weight behind it, the kind of pain that only comes from someone who's seen the truth up close. John hinted that Lori had put up with a lot over the years, but refused to reveal details, saying it wasn't his place to expose what went on behind closed doors. Still, the implication was clear. Something in that marriage had been breaking her spirit long before the world ever found out. Insiders have quietly suggested that the separation didn't come out of nowhere. Years of tension, control, and emotional distance may have taken their toll. And when the college admissions scandal exploded, the cracks widened into something unfixable. It wasn't just legal trouble, it was the final push that tore their marriage apart. To the public, Lori's separation seemed like just another Hollywood breakup. But to those closest to her, it was the painful ending of a long, exhausting battle. And as Stamos spoke, you could tell this wasn't anger for gossip's sake. It was heartbreak for a friend who'd finally had enough. But this wasn't the first storm they faced together. Because before this divorce came the scandal that nearly destroyed both her career and her peace. Before the headlines about divorce, before the word narcissist ever entered the conversation, there was the college admissions scandal, the moment that turned Lori Loughlin and Mossimo Giannulli from Hollywood power couple to public villains overnight. It was 2020 when federal investigators revealed that the couple had paid $500,000 to get their daughters, Olivia Jade and Isabella, into USC as fake crew recruits. The story dominated every major network. The internet dragged them relentlessly. Brands cut ties. Hallmark dropped Lori from her beloved roles. In an instant, decades of career respect crumbled. And while the world mocked, one person didn't disappear, John Stamos. He later revealed that right after the scandal broke, he texted Lori during the press conference, unaware she was seeing her life implode in real time across every channel. "That was the last time I heard from her for a while," he admitted, his voice heavy with regret. Both Lori and Mossimo eventually pleaded guilty to mail and wire fraud. Lori served 2 months in federal prison, Mossimo served 5. But even after their release, things were never the same. Hollywood gave Lori the cold shoulder, while Mossimo quietly retreated from the spotlight. Through it all, Stamos stood by her. He defended her publicly, reminding people of the kind, family-centered person he knew off camera. But now, years later, his latest comments hint that maybe his loyalty had limits, and that the man beside her during that scandal might have been a bigger part of the pain than anyone realized. Because when Stamos said all the hardships she's been through are connected to this guy, it sounded less like gossip and more like truth spoken out of frustration. And what he said next about Mossimo Giannulli? That's where the story takes a brutal turn. When John Stamos finally let loose, it wasn't with passive Hollywood politeness. It was raw, blunt, and deeply personal. After years of silence, he made it clear that he's done protecting Mossimo Giannulli's image. "I will never talk to him again," Stamos declared, cutting all ties with his former friend. His tone left no room for interpretation. This wasn't just a disagreement. This was disgust. He went on to call Giannulli a terrible narcissist, the kind of person who drains everything around them. You could feel the frustration in his words, not just anger for what Mossimo allegedly did, but sorrow for what it did to Lori. "I don't think you ever get out of that unless you're able to," he said, almost like he'd seen the emotional damage unfold over years. It was the kind of statement that felt both protective and mournful, like watching someone you care about repeatedly get hurt and finally saying, "Enough." But even in his anger, Stamos showed a strange compassion. "I pray for this guy," he added softly. "I pray that he realizes what he had, that he gets help." That line shifted everything. He wasn't attacking out of hate. He was speaking from heartbreak. Fans could sense it. This was someone who had watched his friend survive humiliation, betrayal, and public judgment, and still somehow hold her head high. And while some people applauded his honesty, others wondered if he'd crossed a line by calling Mossimo out so publicly. Because in Hollywood, breaking the unspoken rule of silence can make you a target. But Stamos didn't seem to care. After decades of loyalty, he'd had enough of watching Lori's pain get brushed off. And as his words began to spread across social media, the reaction was explosive. The moment John Stamos's podcast clip hit the internet, it spread like wildfire. Fans couldn't believe how openly he spoke not just about Lori's heartbreak, but about Mossimo Giannulli himself. Within hours, social media was flooded with reactions. Some called it the most real thing John's ever said, while others dubbed it the Uncle Jesse revenge era. Supporters of Lori Loughlin praised Stamos for standing up for her when so many in Hollywood stayed silent. Comments poured in calling him a true friend, loyal to the end, and the only one who never abandoned her. Fans who grew up watching Full House said it felt like Uncle Jesse had come to Aunt Becky's defense all over again, only this time, in real life. But not everyone agreed. A few critics thought he went too far, saying it wasn't his place to call Mossimo a narcissist on air. Some argued that he should have let Lori tell her own story instead of fueling more headlines. Still, even those critics admitted one thing: Stamos' honesty was refreshing in an industry built on silence. Rumors started circulating online that Lori herself might have been surprised by the intensity of John's comments. Some fans speculated that she appreciated his loyalty, but didn't expect him to go public with it. Others think it's exactly what she needed, someone powerful enough to say what she couldn't. And as clips of the interview continued to trend across TikTok and X, one thing became clear. This wasn't just another celebrity soundbite. It was a rare human moment, a Hollywood friend saying out loud what everyone else was whispering behind closed doors. But what does all of this mean for Lori now, and could Stamos' words actually help her rebuild her career? That's where the story takes a hopeful turn. For Lori Loughlin, this moment might mark a quiet turning point, not just in her personal life, but in how the public sees her. After years of being defined by the college scandal and the fallout that followed, John Stamos' words have started something she couldn't do herself: shift the narrative. Since completing her prison sentence in 2020, Lori has kept a low profile. She's taken on smaller, faith-based projects and slowly returned to TV through When Hope Calls, a spin-off of her Hallmark series. Insiders say she's been focused on rebuilding her reputation, staying grounded, and keeping her daughters close. But Hollywood is a tough crowd. Forgiveness doesn't come easy. Now, with Stamos openly defending her character, fans are beginning to remember the Lori they once loved, not the scandal, but the person. His interview reminded people that behind the headlines is a woman who, as John said, lived her life really well, and is still a good mother, a good wife, a good person. Those words hit differently coming from someone who's known her for over 30 years. Some entertainment blogs are even suggesting that Stamos' loyalty could reignite industry sympathy. Rumors are swirling that Hallmark executives have taken notice of the renewed public support, and a few smaller studios might be open to giving Lori a second chance. Nothing's confirmed, of course, but fans online are speculating that John's defense could be the first step toward her full comeback. Still, for Lori, the path ahead isn't about fame, it's about healing. The end of a nearly 30-year marriage and years of public humiliation have left scars. But this new wave of support, especially from someone like John Stamos, shows that she's not as alone as the headlines once made her seem. And that's where the story turns from scandal to redemption. But one final question lingers: can loyalty and truth really fix a legacy once it's been shattered? In the end, John Stamos' words weren't just about Mossimo Giannulli. They were about loyalty, heartbreak, and the rare kind of friendship that survives fame, scandal, and time. In a world where Hollywood often turns its back the moment trouble hits, Stamos stood tall for Lori Loughlin, refusing to let her story be written by tabloids or trolls. He didn't speak like a co-star chasing attention, he spoke like family, like someone who's seen the private pain behind the public smile. And in doing so, he reminded everyone watching that behind every glossy photo and red carpet moment, there's a human being trying to hold it all together. Maybe that's why his words hit so hard. Because when he said, "She put up with a lot over the years of this guy," it wasn't drama. It was truth wrapped in compassion. It was the kind of honesty we rarely get from a celebrity, especially when it risks headlines and backlash. Now, fans are left wondering, was John right to call Mossimo out so directly? Or did he cross a line that even friendship shouldn't step over? Either way, one thing's certain. After everything Lori's endured, Stamos' loyalty has reminded millions that some bonds in Hollywood are more than just for the cameras. So what do you think? Was this a brave moment of truth or a step too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories where the drama runs deep, but the truth runs even deeper.